Given that the Gulf states have contributed largely or generously for the war in Afghanistan over many decades, how do you describe their contributions to the rehabilitations or repatriation of the refugees coming back to?
Which group are we talking about?
I'm talking about GCC countries.
The
Gulf cooperation countries.
Oh, the Gulf countries.
Who contributed a lot to the war in Afghanistan during the Soviet era and afterward.
Yes.
Also to Bin Laden's, Al-Qaeda, Taliban, others. How are they contributing to the repatriation of the refugees?
Well, I think where the Gulf states have a particular opportunity to be a very positive force is in this program of development in Afghanistan. This is going to be the solution strategy for the returning refugees in Afghanistan is going to be a multi-year, multi-stakeholder project that's going to require funding. And so I think where the Gulf state can be particularly helpful is in helping with the funding of this project. This is going to be a long-term project. It will be involve different ministries, different actors, different players and stakeholders. And you know, initial funding is important, but it will need funding on the long term. And my hope is that areas like, regions like the Gulf states can participate in funding and supporting this program long term, so we can, 10 years down the road, 15 years down the road, we have different results.
Did they show any intention in this direction?
I'm not aware of the involvement of the Gulf states.
If I may, Martin, we recently had a bit of a watershed, I believe. We had a conference together with the OIC in Ashgabat, in Turkmenistan, where for the first time the OIC members came together to address specifically the issue of refugees and refugees from and to the Islamic world. I think it's fair to say that it came a bit as a shock to many participants to learn that 70% of the world's refugees are either originating from or are situated in the Islamic part of the world. And hence, UNHCR's efforts to also look at the roots of the tradition in Islamic law, in Islamic scriptures, to see how does the status of a refugee fare, and you know, how do governments deal with it? When you look at the map of those countries around the world that have acceded to the Refugee Convention, you'll see a big white spot in the Middle East. Even if 184 countries around the world are now signatories to either the convention or the protocol in 1967 that was added, by and large, the Arab world is still not a signatory to the Refugee Convention, and yet are hosting significant numbers of refugees and are dealing with them according to their own norms, traditions, and national laws. So there is a lot of work to be done. Clearly, we certainly hope that in the future, given that it is also a regional phenomenon that impacts directly on the security in the neighboring states, that that will become a much more prominent force, also in terms of financial support to the office, and hopefully ultimately to the goal of anchoring those who have returned spontaneously in most cases, or because of the pressures in the asylum countries back home, to actually find a meaningful way to continue their lives in Afghanistan, their home country.
Sorry, just follow up. How many Afghan refugees have found their way to GCC countries, to the Gulf Cooperation Council countries? Do you have an estimate about how many were received there or hosted?
I wouldn't know that offhand, but we did issue, and I think we might have copies in the back, the analysis of the global statistical trends as of the end of last year, which was just issued by my office, where you see the details of asylum seekers by country, by region, countries of origin, countries of asylum, so that you will find those answers in there. It's also on our website.
Okay, so time for